I'm going to show you guys how to make your base for your tile, okay? This is essentially the same technique that we're going to use to also make our shapes. So it'll be repeated eventually, all right? But this is the slab that I made last period. So I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. And of course, I just messed it up with my finger. But this is essentially what it's going to look like, all right, when you're done. And we're going to, again, keep our tiles on this board. So this is basically where they're going to just kind of stay. The board's going to keep it from getting kind of floppy and getting messed up. So it'll help keep it look nice and neat, all right? And then your bag, of course, is going to be where you're going to keep it all the time so it doesn't dry out too fast, all right? So I basically have over here everything that's over on the countertop. So those are what I call the wedging stations. So that's where you're going to wedge your clay. That's also going to be where you guys make your slabs. There you're going to have a rolling pin. You're going to have two dowel sticks. For today, for this step, you guys are going to have the 1/2 inch dowel sticks. So these are a 1/2 inch wide. When we do our shapes for the next layer, they're going to be a much smaller dowel stick. It's going to be half the size, so they're going to be 1/4 inch, okay? You're going to have a fettling knife, okay? These templates are actually magnet clipped to the wall right in front of you. So this has your tile template on there. There's also a ruler there that we might be using a little bit more, but I actually used a little bit on that, and I'll show you how to use it. You're going to have a board to basically wedge on, because if you try to wedge on the table, your clay would get stuck to it. So we're going to keep the boards there. Now, some of the other stuff that I have here that you will not have at your station, I have a wire tool. This is what I use to take the clay off of the block, okay? And I'll be the only one that has that thing, but that's just what it is. All right, so let me talk about the clay. This is the clay. As you can tell, this is a lot. This is actually a lot less than what it was before because I've taken some off of here. So we get our clay in 50-pound boxes, and each box is 2 bags. Each bag has 25 pounds of clay in it. So this right here was 25 pounds of clay, okay? We use a white stoneware clay, so when it dries, it will get a lot lighter in color, and even by the time it gets fired, it's gonna kind of be like a buff white. Sometimes it even looks a little pink in color sometimes. So that's what it's gonna look like, okay? So for those of you that wanted a good arm workout, you're gonna get one. So basically, the clay comes on this big block, and some of this clay I've already used. So I'm going to I just use this wire tool to kind of basically take off the pieces. It just cuts it like butter, which is great. And let's see here, I'll start with that much. So yeah, so when I was at Miami taking my ceramics classes, there was always a lot of football players in there because they liked being in ceramics class because it was a good arm workout. So, but they could throw some big stuff on the potter's wheel. It was pretty cool to watch. All right, so once you get your clay, regardless if it came off of a new block or not, you want to wedge it, okay? Wedging is important, so you always wedge clay when you get it from me. Does anybody remember what the 3 reasons for wedging clay are? Or can you give me just one? It does help to keep it together. Why? What does it remove? Does anybody remember what I said it removes? Air, yes. So when you wedge the clay, I'll put these here, you are actually taking air out of it. So if you guys notice the way I'm kind of moving it, air gets stuck in here, okay? And if it gets stuck in there, it's bad, especially if it stays in there, because there's a lot of moisture in this clay. There's a lot of water in it, all right? What happens to water when you heat it up? It evaporates, boils, right? It's gotta go somewhere, right? So if there's air pocket trapped in a clay wall and it gets heated up and that moisture starts to boil and wants to evaporate, it needs a way to escape. So what it will do is it will literally bust its way out of the wall, okay, and cause a really good crack and break in your project, so you don't want that, okay? Sometimes if you're in a quiet space and you're doing this, you can hear the air pockets pop. Kind of sounds like bubble gum. But in here you won't hear it because there's always a lot of people doing this. All right, the other two reasons, one is because we want to mix all the ingredients together in the clay, okay? So just like when you're making dough or pizza dough, bread, pasta, you're mixing those ingredients together because you want them to marry, okay? So that's what that does. Another reason is to equalize the moisture in the clay, okay? So sometimes when we're using recycled clay, you might have some clay that's kind of really wet, and then you might have some clay that's a little bit drier. By wedging it, you'll make it consistent, okay? So clay is what I call a high maintenance material. It likes consistency. So if there's anything different or off, it's not gonna work, okay? So consistency is key, all right? So the way I'm wedging, if you guys hold out your hands like this, okay? I want you to feel this meaty part right at the base of your thumb, okay? Right there, all right? That's what you're gonna use when you wedge, okay? So when I'm wedging, I'm basically using those muscly parts of my thumb and I'm pushing the clay into itself, kind of rolling it into itself, okay? And I'm using my body weight too, so it's not just my arms, but I'm using all of my weight and I'm moving my whole body into that clay, okay? And you can see I'm kind of rolling it and I rotate it. So I'll do this about 3 times and then I'll rotate it and do it again, okay? Now, when you do this, there is not a perfect number of times to do this or time frame, okay? So basically you do this until the clay feels good, okay? A lot of people want a number, so just to be on the safe side, I would kind of, you know, if you kind of think about this kneading movement that I do it about 10 times, and I think you're fine. To be honest with you, I think that might be a little much, so if you want to do a little less, you could do less, okay? So, I've got this pre-wedged, okay? Now, if you guys look, you can see the layers, right? You can even see lines in the clay here. All of that is okay. Nothing to worry about, okay? So once I get it wedged, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a block. So I'm just gonna create the block by just kind of pounding it into the board to a block-like shape, okay? It's not perfect, doesn't need to be, okay? Then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my fist and I'm just gonna start kind of thinning this out. Now when I do this, I do like to kind of pick this up, flip it over just to keep it consistency. Because again, clay likes consistency. Now if you guys notice, I'm not really hitting the clay super hard. I don't want to create areas where it's really thin and then really thick. Again, when I do this, I want to keep it consistent. I probably have too much clay here, which is fine. I'd rather have too much than not enough. All right. And again, you see those lines right there? See these lines? That is perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about. All right, so once I do this, and it's still pretty thick, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start using the rolling pin and the dowel sticks. So this is the way you use this. You're gonna put your dowel sticks on either side of your clay, and you wanna give it some space, because when I roll it, it's gonna go like this, okay? It's gonna flatten out. And here's your rolling pin. Now when you use your rolling pin, you wanna kind of start in the middle. I'm not putting a lot of pressure down here. I'm just kind of rocking back and forth in the middle. I need something similar to a square, okay? So I'll kind of roll this way for a little bit. And then what I'll do, I'll pick this up and I'll turn it. And now I'll do it this way. So that way I get kind of like a circle or a square. So again, I'm going to start in the middle, kind of rock back and forth. I want to make sure that my rolling pin is on top of those dowel sticks. I've got, I think, too much clay here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off some of this because I don't need all of that. There we go. It's getting a little too wide. There we go. Now, once I get close to the bottom, or I've kind of got it to the size I need it or the thickness I need it, I am gonna start really putting some pressure down. And I see some air pockets. I don't know if you guys can see it. So if you guys look, do you see that? And this, see how it's a little raised? Those are air pockets. If you do see them, just take your knife, poke holes in it, and then move on. You're fine. All right. All right, so the middle here is pretty well rolled out. Should be about 1/2 inch thick. And again, towards the end, I am pushing down pretty hard with the rolling pin. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my template, kind of press that in there so it sticks to it, okay? And I'm ready to cut, okay? Now when I cut, when I use this fettling knife, I don't want to have it at an angle of any way. I want to keep it pretty much perpendicular or straight up. And basically, I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to take my time. I'm just going to cut along that edge. So again, I want to keep that knife nice and straight, because if I don't, I'm going to get kind of like a beveled edge or an angled edge, and I don't want that. Again, when you cut this out, I would just take your time. There's no rush. Okay. And then I can take this off, so there's my slab. Now, here's the tricky part. Taking it off the board, sometimes you can, inadvertently, you can see I'm kind of messing up the edges there. I'm gonna pick this up. I'm gonna actually move this guy. I'll show you how I did this before. I'm gonna put it on my board here. Lay this back down, and then what I did is I used this ruler to kind of help straighten it up a little bit. So I just kind of took it up against the edges like this. To kind of clean up the movement that I added to it when I was picking it up. Because we want it to look pretty nice. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Again, this should be a 1/2 inch thick. Once I'm finished, then basically this is going to go into my bag like that, and it's just going to hang out there until I'm ready to add layers to it. Now we do want the clay to kind of sit up for a little bit, because right now it's super soft, so it's a little too soft to add anything on top. We want it to dry out just a little bit so it gets a little bit stronger. All right, but that's it. That's how you do it. All right, so the extra clay, guys, you'll just give back to me, and I'll give it to somebody else to make a slab out of. All right, does anybody have any questions? All right, so you guys can go back to your tables, work on your designs, and I'm going to call up a few people to start.
Quite good.
Good, yeah.